Robert Gould Shaw was 23 when he decided to join the Army in 1861. He joined the 7th Regiment of the New York State Militia. Shaw didn't do much fighting, he mainly did chores.
Shaw originally planned to stay in the Army for a little while. Despite his original plan, he decided to stay in the Army and apply for a permanent commission in a Massachusetts regiment.
In May of 1861, he was offered the position of second lieutenant in the 2nd Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry.
Against Shaw's abolitionist beliefs, one of his duties was to catch runaway slaves and return them to their masters. He felt obligated to do so by the government.
During most of Shaw's time in the 2nd Massachusetts, he did more small labor than fighting. His duties were to escort wagons, guard bridges, conduct drills and inspections, and perform picket duty. However, there were a few occasions where the Confederates fired at his regiment.
Interesting fact, his pocket watch saved Shaw's life when he was shot at.
In August 1862, Shaw was appointed captain of the 2nd Massachusetts. The next month, he and his regiment fought in Antietam. Shaw was shot and wounded.
After Antietam, Shaw was offered the leadership of the 1st Black Regiment, the 54th Massachusetts, by Andrew Johnson and Frederick Douglass. At first, he declined, but after discussing it with his parents, he changed his mind and accepted.
In February 1863, Shaw started recruiting free blacks. Shortly after they were recruited, they immediately began training.
The Confederate Congress passed an act that stated that any white soldier fighting alongside a black would be punished or killed, and the black soldiers would be put back into slavery. Despite this act, Shaw and all of his men still continued to be a part of the Army.
Shaw was irate at the fact that his men weren't getting the same quality of uniforms and artillery as white soldiers. He demanded that his soldiers receive the same quality.
In addition to uniforms and artillery, his men also got only $10 as opposed to the $13 that the white soldiers got. Shaw and his men boycotted pay until this inequality was resolved. This wasn't resolved until 18 months later, which leads us to believe that Shaw and his men never received pay.
The 54th was not allowed to fight until Shaw demanded that his soldiers have the right to fight. 2 days later, they got an hour's notice to be ready to fight.
The 54th's first battle was at James Island in South Carolina, where they saved the 10th Connecticut. This was a major turning point for black soldiers because they proved themselves as soldiers.
After James Island, they headed to Fort Wagner. Shaw accepted the frontal assault even though he knew it was going to be dangerous.
At the hesitation of Shaw's men, he yelled, "Forward, 54th, forward!" and the men followed him, which signified their loyalty and trust in Shaw.
Shaw was the first one to reach the walls of the fort, but when he did, he was shot and fell into the fort, as were many of his men. When his father was asked about the burial of his son, he said, "We would not have his body removed from where it lies, surrounded by his brave and devoted soldiers."
A monument was made for Robert Shaw and the 54th Massachusetts' brave and heroic acts. Their story also lives on through books, poems, and movies.